Well, earlier it wasn't going to work for me because it didn't solve my labor issues. It didn't solve our facilities not fitting the number of animals we had. What do you like to do, and what's your resource base really fit? And I think a lot of times we enter into the cattle business with a set of, here's what I want to do, or here's what we've always done, without, sometimes we need to step back and kind of assess, well, what are we good at, what do we like to do, and what does our resource base really fit? And sometimes we realize we're doing the wrong thing. And Dad AI'd the whole herd for quite a few years. We AI'd heifers for quite a while, and it's not that those efforts didn't do anything for us. They did, but as our grazing management has changed and just we have a different production model now than we used to, we kind of had to quit doing some of those things that don't fit either our labor or our resources anymore, or our goals. So if you're looking at changing calving seasons, it's likely going to be, I can guarantee it's going to be more than just AIing later or just turning the bulls out later. There's going to be a whole host of other decisions that need to be made. And that's good. I think it's good. And maybe you decide to keep doing what you're doing, but the act of going through and evaluating what you're doing and what your resources are and those kind of things, I think that's valuable for any business, and especially in the cattle business.
My grandpa told me that was when you could do the most natural, easiest thing, and yet it was the most dangerous to your health, and that was to breathe that air that was carrying the dust from several states away and some locally too. And when they came through that, they reinforced the philosophy that we've always had, that our philosophy is to keep the surface below the surface of the land, below the soil health, as healthy as we can, to keep the top covered with the grass, and to keep the wetlands full of water.
I started doing things different in about 2007. I started planting more cropland back to grass and doing more grazing and less farming. If you plant cropland back to grassland and you don't have more cows, you don't make enough money to cover the cost of planting it back to grass. You need to generate more income. I need to not just look at how many dollars per acre am I making off of this. I need to look at how does this package fit together. And for me, that's important. If you're nice to the soil and you use no-till and cover crops in a responsible manner, that aggregate stability will stay there. What does that mean to you? That means that when it rains, that water's going to soak in instead of run off. When that water soaks in, I can grow feed for my cattle. When it runs off, I can't grow anything. Soil health boils down to, what are we doing to enhance the bacteria in the soil? What are we doing to feed the microbes and the bacteria in the soil so that they can exude things that turn into organic matter, or are organic matter? When we have a living root in the soil for an extended period of time, when we put wheat or corn or beans in, we've got a living root in the soil for just a few months. But when we work a grass legume mixture into the rotation, we've got a living root in the soil for 12 months out of the year. For 12 months out of the year, we're feeding the bacteria and the other microbes in the soil, and they're exuding organic matter, and that's the sponge in the soil. That's the part that holds the water, that holds the nutrients, that holds the air, that holds the food for the other plants.
So our transition at the ranch from early March calving to May calving was a result of lack of labor and the fact that we were dealing with the weather, and all that also translates into the economics of running a ranch. We were just spending way too much time, too much expense on feed, too much time calving, fighting the weather, hard on calves, and so we slowly transitioned. We didn't make the move from March to May in one big move. We did it a little more gradual, like 2 weeks at a time, because we were concerned about things like how it would affect our marketing, how it would affect our pregnancy rates, our health, and so we did it kind of gradual.
Our culture changed, and we changed from having solid dates that we did things to looking at the cows and looking at the land. May calving has many benefits. One of them is lowering cost of wintering. So when these cows get into late April and we start getting grass, they can start gaining weight. Even 1st of April, late March, they can start putting on weight and condition. We didn't have to do it with hay in February so we could calve in March. So this is utilizing our resources to at the best we can. And so these cows are working harder. I have a partner, and his family is involved in the ranch. We have regular meetings. We discuss the possibilities, and we utilize HRM approach to this process. I think this process of taking the time to understand your resources and creating a ranch model that everybody's happy with, is possible. You're not ever going to keep everybody happy, but at least having people's visions, be a part of the management.
There's definitely that desire to have pride in your work and to have this really nice looking set of calves that's bigger than the neighbors, maybe trying to one up them. For me, I kind of had to just get to a point where I said, I can't play that game because I don't have the resources to play that game. I have to play the game that I'm good at, which is I have this set of resources, and this set of resources tells me that this May calving for me is really the best way to go because it allows me to use my resources to their fullest extent, or to their best extent, not fullest extent, just because we're trying to optimize and not maximize, and that's a lot of what we do.
We have, we had farm ground that shouldn't have been farm ground, and we've transitioned. We started in 2008 to transition from cropping and from ranching to just ranching. And that's about when we took it over from my parents.
And that was the other thing too, we used to tag and all that. And Pat has always said, why? Why do we tag? What have we done with the information that we obtain from tagging? Have we changed anything? And always the answer is, no, we don't change anything. So why? And so those questions of why and realizing that there really wasn't an answer, so then you stop doing that thing and why do we do this? And, and it's a good question to ask. It's a good question for everyone to ask. Why do we do what we do? And when you don't have an answer, then you can say, well, maybe we don't need to be doing it.
I run right on the Morrow River. There's not very much flat ground. It's got a lot of cover, a lot of draws. So it can be difficult times. Don't do any haying. So it is really good cow country, but it's also really tough accessing.
The biggest thing we're doing was we're trying to balance our resources on the cow and match our production schedule to the cow. And we were typically in the past, we were calving earlier, and it was, we went through a lot of hay to get to that, to get to green grass, and the costs of that are just prohibitive. Now we're trying to manage our grass better so that we can cut our overheads down, get them more in line. We're implemented intensive grazing this last year. We've dabbled in it for about 5 years, but we really put it together this fall. Jim Garris says it's pretty hard to screw up a dry cow in the fall, so that's where we started. We started last spring by getting those cattle out away from the feed ground and running them through our pastures. We have a lot of crested wheatgrass where we're at, and it's really good from April, May, in part of June, and then it starts declining really fast. So one of my biggest challenges is to get over all of that crested in a good fashion early, and instead of having them there on the feed ground feeding them hay. And the costs of that are tremendous. And our hay fields are in decline. The organic matter is very low in them. We've had, over the last at least 50 years of hard haying, we've lost most of our organic matter, and the erosion is severe. And you don't notice it until you start digging and looking down, and you can really see the damage that's been done. And I think haying them on the dry years is the worst thing we could ever do.
With technology, the equipment that we have available today, it is very easy to get the farming aspect done with applying the soil health principles, not disturbing that soil, using the no-till, and working with nature. I have the livestock integration on the soils as well. So the workload of it's more of a management load than the actual physical workload to get my farming done.